and then brought someone else alongside of them and said, now let me teach you. And so it gets passed down. So all of us should be achieving success.
It's basically like having enough passive income to cover your bills early on. And then technically you can retire, right?
And it created an organic network for us where we could communicate with people who are on higher levels than us.
He knows what's making me upset. And so we found early on, like, we don't like to ruffle each other's feathers a lot.
There is a journey. Yes, there's goals. Yes, there's a shared vision, but I'm more interested in living, doing this with people that I enjoy and that I'm having fun with.
If you put other people before you, then reciprocally, other people will do the same.
There's been times that I don't want to do something and he can tell. He's like, dude, I know that you're feeling this way. I can sense it. What is going on?
All right, ladies and gentlemen, here we go. We've got Ryan and Corey on the show. Look, we got one of you named Ryan and Corey and Ryan, and one of you named Ryan. This is awesome. Gentlemen, thanks so much for being on the show. I'm so excited to have you here.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having us. This is a pleasure.
Yeah, super excited for today, Sam. Thanks for having us during the show.
Yeah, guys. So I am so impressed, in the short time that I've gotten to know you, that the relationship that comes up for me as I was getting to know you guys share an Instagram page together. You guys have this really cool dynamic partnership as you're helping people get into their first rental, helping them become financially free. You've built your real estate portfolio to over 70 doors, but you have done a lot of this together and are really supporting each other in this journey. I think of like Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger. I don't know how much you guys know their story, but just like did this super cool relationship. They built wealth together. And I think it's incredibly rare. I'd love if you'd share with our listeners, first of all, what exactly is this partnership? How are you guys working together? Frankly, this is one of the few episodes I've done with two people. I'm usually one-on-one here. So I just want to kind of give some context to the listeners for who you guys are, how you found each other, what your dynamic of your relationship is. You can kind of take that in any direction you want to go. But Ryan, why don't I kick off with you first?
Cool. I was going to kick it to Corey, but I will definitely start.
Okay, that's fine too.
All good. We know what we're good at talking about, but I will start here. I think, first of all, high praise, Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett. Nice. I love that comparison. Thank you. I don't think we ever heard that. But I think walking our story back, Corey and I, we both met in college, so roughly like 12, 13 years ago. And I don't know what it was exactly, but we kind of knew the relationship was going to be special. Just kind of, it sounds kind of probably crazy to say that, but we're just like, we thought alike and we saw the world in like a similar view, and we're always hungry for something different. We kind of felt like we're made for more, right? We didn't know what that was. And that was back in college. We started kind of riffing, talking about things, then, graduated, ended up starting our W-2s. And oddly enough, I graduated a year before Corey, and then we both found ourselves at the same job, different positions, but same company. So it was really interesting. We were kind of like following different paths, and, my living situation ended at one point, and Corey had an open spot in his house. He's like, dude, you want to live together? Or I might have actually spotted the opportunity and said, dude, I know your boy's leaving. I don't have a place to live. I'd love to, join forces, join the crib. And he was like, yeah, sure, dude. So end up living together. And then, you're going through the 9-to-5 life every day. And though it's different positions, right, we're still having the same feeling every night. We're like, man, like, is this it? Like, are we just going to do this until we're 67? And then oddly enough, our landlord came by one day, and this is at least my experience, and he collected rent from us. And this was weird. It was usually it's done online, but for whatever reason, the program wasn't working. So he collected cash. I'm like, this is the guy that owns the place? I couldn't believe it. And he was a younger guy, probably our age now. And he's just a little goofy. And I was like, wow, man, like, he's not that much different than us. Like, I feel like if this guy can figure it out, we can figure it out. So, we talked about it for a little bit. We were studying financial independence. I came across the FIRE movements, got super hooked in that. And then, as much as you learn, your brain takes you a specific way. And we both ended up buying the expensive cars. I think we each paid 30 plus grand I had a really nice Dodge Challenger. Corey had the Mercedes, and blacked out. They were sick. And we had parked them next to each other, took the pictures. We were like all excited, right? And that was like, we're doing it, man. Like, we're doing it. And then we're like, every month we keep coming to like, man, we keep having to pay this bill. And like, it's not that cool. Like, you feel cool going to your car, but it's still a massive bill. And so it kind of started there for us. We were like, whoa, we need to make a change. We don't really know how to do it. And I'll kind of stop the story from here and let Corey pick up, because it evolves from further. But we lived together. We started talking about the FIRE movement, started talking about real estate investing, and I'll go to his perspective.
Yeah. And before we go to Corey, just define the FIRE movement real fast, 30 seconds for people who maybe are not familiar with that.
Sure. Financial independence, retire early. So a lot of people, that's what it stands for. It's FIRE. And a lot of people live very frugally to get to FIRE first. It's basically like having enough passive income to cover your bills early on. And then technically you can retire, right? So a lot of people do this frugally. Other people do it through real estate investing, but buying assets essentially to, offset all your liabilities or your expenses, and then you're technically retired.
Yeah. So it's like reduced, like a lot of those people in that movement are like, hey, what's the cheapest I can possibly live and get passive income to cover that cheapness. Yeah, that's beautiful. Corey, what's your perspective on that?
Well, yeah, and Sam, it's interesting because we don't look at it like, you know, you can only go so far down. You know, I start making your own soap at that point, right? So it's like that's not the route. We're trying to get to the point where we just increase our income and live the same way for the next couple years, for 5 years. If you can live under the same, have the same expenses for 5 years and keep increasing your income, it gets you exponentially closer. But I saw a quote recently, and I'll continue the story here, but I saw a quote recently that was like, is what's better, the journey or the destination? And then the response was the company. And I thought that was like so interesting. And that plays into Ryan and my story here a little bit. It's like, the destination is great, the journey's awesome, but like, what about who you're doing it with? And that was kind of the connection that Ryan and I had. And I never really like phrased it that way. I don't even think to him, but it's interesting because we lived together. We both bought our primary residence. I was house hacking. He moved in with his wife. And then I bought my first rental property, and Ryan says this all the time. I put up an Instagram post and he saw it and he was like, wow, like you're actually doing the shit that we said we were going to do. Like, so we decided to start a podcast together. And once we started that podcast, it kind of held us accountable, and it created an organic network for us where we could communicate with people who are on higher levels than us, and created our own community in a way. And then we are able to scale from 1 unit to 4 units to 8 units. And then from there, we're like, okay, how can we do this faster? And we figured the way to do it faster was actually not just Ryan and I. It ended up being partnerships through the podcast. So then 8 units turned to 14, turned to 60, turned to 75. And they were with strategic partnerships with people that we've met on the podcast. And that has expanded our network exponentially. But it really comes back to the two of us, and like, not necessarily, we're not the best at dividing roles, but we are the best at continuing to keep trust that we are the guys that are going to figure this out for ourselves and not rely on other people in terms of like deep down, right? So our relationship comes down to trust, and it comes down to like, who do I want to spend a lot of time with? And we've, at an early age, we just figured it out that, we do. And here we are 5 years later into our partnership, and it's only the beginning, because we've had a massive shift in our business journey, and like, we're ready for the next wave, so to speak.
Yeah, guys, your relationship is super admirable, and I hope people are taking away just little lessons. I think people go through life and they have these different relationships or these different interactions. I'm not even sure if partnership really, like, I didn't even start thinking about partnerships until recently. And I kind of wish I had your guys' mindset earlier on in my real estate journey, where I was thinking about, people that I got along with. I was thinking about, complementary skills. That wasn't really a superpower of mine. And then I've come across this quote. Have you guys ever heard, like, your network is your net worth? It's like the most cliche quote, right? But like, it's true. And you guys are like living proof of all the partnerships you've created. You're a general partner in deals, you're a limited partner in deals, and all of those things have come through relationships, I'm sure. So I'd love to stay on this topic for just a little bit longer and just ask, before I ask you guys what your like succinct message is to the world from both of you and what you're trying to share and help people with. Do you guys ever get into disagreements? And if so, how do you handle that? Like, I want to just stay on this partnership thing for a little bit, because I wish more people would be thinking about it in these terms.
It's interesting. I think, and you don't want, it's going to come across probably poorly the way I'm phrasing this to your audience, but we do have disagreements. I think we each can feel the energy of each other. We've known each other so long, man. Like, even from a text, I'll know how he's feeling. And it sounds kind of weird. You're basically in a relationship together. Like, whether you want to say it or not, like, though I'm married, though he has a girlfriend, like, we spent so much time together. So I know his like little quirks. I know what's pissing him off. He knows what's making me upset. And so we found early on, like, we don't like to ruffle each other's feathers a lot. Like, it's really, I know that if we're both having a bad day and we'll both drag each other down, and it'll be a horrible day. Whereas, like, even if you have to fake it one day while the other guy's having a bad day just to uplift him, that's very important. I will say we do get into arguments. It's not ever a fighting match. It's more so like, it's kind of a weird thing. It's almost like I don't want to say passive aggressive, but like, we just give each other the edge. Like, hey, listen, like, here's what I'm doing today. Are you following up on what you said you were going to do, kind of thing? And like, or just like a subtle reminder, be like, okay, you got Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday posts. I got Thursday, Friday, but I have Tuesday, Thursday, but what's up with the post today, kind of thing. Like, just little nudges. And I think we're at the point where it's hard for me to remember back in the beginning a little bit, because right now we're so in tuned and dialed with it that it's like, I know anything I do impacts him and vice versa. So if we're not holding ourselves accountable, it's very difficult to hold the other person accountable. And then vice versa. Like, how can you hold yourself accountable if you're not holding Corey accountable? It's just an interesting thing. So we also had another partner in with the podcast early on, and it was the producer of the show. So it was kind of like a 3-headed beast attacking the podcast. And then it evolved into Corey and Ryan building their real estate portfolio. So the argument things, I'll let Corey maybe answer his part of this, but there's never any like super bickering matches. We know it's all for the greater good, and we hold our relationship first and like family first. We're like, dude, at the end of the day, all this shit doesn't matter. And sorry, forgive me if I can't speak French here, but we can't get over the fact that like we're over the fact of money's going to come in and out of our lives all the time. Right. And we know we want to get to this retirement faster, but a lot of people have told us, hey, it's not about the end destination. Once you get here, it's like you just continually think about your journey all the way to the top and like relive those memories, right? So for us, we're trying to really appreciate the journey along the way and like understand there's going to be so many things that go wrong. If you don't win, you learn. If you don't win, you learn. We don't say win or fail, because you never really fail if you just keep going. So I think a lot of this comes down to us trying to keep each other grounded and staying in the moment versus tweaking out about little tiny things where we know we're gonna get to that point, as long as we just kind of follow the small details along the way. But Corey, I don't know if I missed anything.
No, I think that the only way you can find yourself a good partnership is to potentially have some that don't work out. And you have to be okay with some of them not working out. And we've had our fair share of failed partnerships. And I think that or learned partnerships, right? Because we don't say fail, but just like things that didn't work out, and remove the fear that you're going to lose everything. And I've been told my whole life, like, oh, partnerships are bad. Like, you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't get into them. Like, they always end in negativity. And it's like, well, if you have the wrong person in your circle, or you have the wrong person around you, then potentially. But that's why the vetting process and just like that real deep rooted like family, almost like, or not almost, but that family, like this person, I would do anything for this person. And I think that puts any amount of money, any amount of success behind the relationship that you have. So that would be, how I think our partnership flourishes.
I have one exact example for you, Sam. This might help.
Yeah, give it. It's great.
So we're midway through building our real estate portfolio together, and like all the time we're continuously like vetting deals, trying new things. Like, hey, like other projects, what do we like? What do we don't like? We've tried an array of things, as you mentioned. And Corey approached me. We were looking at this place down in a vacation spot, and it was going to be an Airbnb, and we were kind of running the numbers together. He had gone down and actually visited, found the deal and all the stuff, right? Put all the work in. And he approached me and he's like, listen, like, I know we're going to do this together, but for these reasons, do you mind if I go this one alone? And his reasoning was, I want to retire my family down there. I want them to have a place to go. And the times that I want to go down a couple times a year, but the weekends that we're not renting it, I don't want you to feel bad that we're not recouping money for those if I'm just going to enjoy the place. And it wasn't really about the money for me. It was the underlying him coming to me and saying, hey, listen, like I will do this with you, but I'm asking you if you would mind if I do this alone. And it was rather than him just like sneaking and doing it and being, and I'm finding out he's got something under contract. I'm like, oh man, like that would hurt a lot. He approached it the perfect way. Though I wish I had the property with him, the fact that he has some place for him and his family to go, that's one example of like, I just said, dude, no worries at all. Like if that's part of your piece of your life that you're trying to craft and we're trying to build our lives, right? We're not trying to work every single day of our lives. So you're trying to build your life around your job, not your job around your life. And so, or the other way around. So to that point, I was like, dude, Court, no worries, bro. Like absolutely go take it, go do it. And he's killing it. And I'm like pumped for him. And I know that asset is going to be an amazing piece for his Monopoly game that he's playing in his own life. So I say that to say, not all the deals are going to be together. You have to be able to have those conversations. And a lot of people would just hide it and they would just go do it. And then it would be like, okay, well, there's contention there. But we just throw it all on the table for feeling the type of way. Just say it, dude. We've been, I think with other relationships in our lives, you've heard people like they withdraw information, they hold information back, and like you can sense when someone's feeling a type of way. And we've gone through this. It's not been perfect. Like there's been times that I don't want to do something and he can tell. He's like, dude, I know that you're feeling this way. I can sense it. What is going on? We just lay it on the table. We vet it out, decide if we should do it. And truthfully, even if the numbers work sometimes and we're feeling like gutsy about it, we don't do it. We're like, dude, nope, the gut doesn't feel right. You're not feeling this. I'm not doing this. And other times we'll talk each other into it. Be like, dude, I understand your gut doesn't feel right about this, but this is why it will work. And this is why we should try it. And then we try it. So it's not all perfect, but we go through these ebbs and flows and we really vet things. And, I think it comes down, it's hard for people to probably find partnerships like this because we kind of lucked out where it is a bit of a family situation we have going on now. It's like my brother going into something. That's how we view it. We've known each other for so long. The trust is just different than finding someone randomly online and trying to go into a deal together and hope they follow through. It's like, I never, ever have to worry about the money. Corey handles all our money. He's seen my social security number. He's seen all my, we've shared so many deals together. I just never have to worry about it. He's never withdrawing any money, no BS ever. And I've checked, we've all checked over years, right? And we've never once wavered from just being upfront and honest with each other. And dude, I think we just have a good thing going. I know it's not always going to be perfect. I don't want anyone to think a partnership's always going to be perfect because there is that, hey, partnerships don't always work. There's going to be times where one of us wants to sell a property because the other one wants to buy a big primary or do something, right? And it's going to be like, dude, how do we attack this thing and make it right for both people? And we understand that's going to come. And I think if you go into it, just trying to find a happy medium, realizing you guys signed up 50-50 for this, it's just, you got to make it work. So,
yeah, guys, let me share with you what I just learned from this and try to pull, because you guys just dropped so many value bombs right in that section, and then we'll put a bow on this and we'll move on. But I'm glad we're spending a few minutes here because I think there's a lot of people out there that crave a partnership in business where that's complementary. And so I've always heard in relationships in general, you're looking for someone with shared values. And as you guys were both talking, it was really interesting. I noticed some shared values I'd like to just share. I jotted down. One, I love what you said, Ryan. It's like, I heard this saying the other day, the truth will set you free. They said but the ugly truth will set you free is what this guy told me. And I feel like that's what you guys have. You guys have hey, we're going to tell you exactly like it is. I think that's really, really beautiful. You guys both value over communicating. It sounds like you both value, and again, these are just things I'm pulling from what you just shared. You both value, I wrote down loving accountability. You nudge each other, but you're not dude, asshole, with the, why didn't you? It feels more loving than that, even though maybe that comes up too. I don't know. You both give each other an allowance to mess up. I heard you both say that. I think that's really something to look for, what I'm learning from you guys. You both value gratitude. Coming at this whole journey from a place of we're going to get there. We don't know. You have a shared vision. It sounds like you both have a shared vision, and you both value relationships. And honestly, I'm hearing you guys almost value the other person more than you do yourself sometimes. I don't know if that's accurate or not.
I don't know if anybody's ever said that, but I will say this: I'd rather lose my own money than Ryan's. So I think that's, it's because I've noticed if you put other people before you, then reciprocally other people will do the same. That's hard to do because everyone has a selfishness to them, and you should be selfish in a lot of scenarios. You really should. You should protect your time and protect your family and what you've built. And the ultimate goal is security. But if you really pour into other people and put them before you and make sure that you're extending that olive branch, there is something about a karma in this universe, and it always comes back. And I think that we both try to live that way in many aspects. And I know that, this is an interesting time because I just left my full-time job and Ryan still has his. So we've for the first time ever had not the same exact situation in our lives going on. Because we were both working W-2s and trying to build this business on the side, and now I'm full time. And I think we just have a great understanding of I'm still putting him before anything else. There's many things that I'm doing alone, and there's many things that he's doing long nights after work. And it's just, I think that's what makes us whatever level of success you'd like to call it.
Well, guys, I wish you all the best with that. Ryan, you want to add something to that?
Yeah, one final thing. I think it's interesting, and maybe we don't think about this, and I kind of think about this in a relationship too. It's it's a long-term investment. We have a vision for our long-term portfolio, right? A lot of this is geared around real estate investing, putting your money into the dirt, right? Watching it grow over time in a long period of time, planting that seed, if you will. I think that goes to a partnership as well. I view Corey. No, I'm not saying I view him as an asset, but he is a huge asset to my life, and I'm a huge asset to his life. Meaning when everything else fails and we lose it all, right? I know that if we both go back at this thing again, we're going to be able to pick it right back up. And it's not going to be, maybe it won't be tomorrow, but like we have the systems processes dialed. I have the trust in him. I know what he's really good at and I know what he might lack in. And I know where we need to fill holes. And he knows the same thing too. Like I think it's the ship, right? Like you kind of got to plug the holes as you go, as you're going through the ocean, because things happen all the time. And there's one thing I never, ever worry about really. It's always just, Corey's always a constant in our business, right? And I always like to think of myself as a constant in the business. Like the cornerstones are never moving. Those are the foundational rocks and the pillars that are staying there. It's like, what can you build around these two guys that is just going to make you scale and excel further and faster? And that's who we're trying to find. And we've found over time, it's very hard to find a person like we've already found to come into the business and help, because no one cares about it as much as you do. The values might be different. The interests might be different. We just have a very rare interest in the same thing. And like our skill sets are not the same though. We haven't gotten there yet. So we can certainly talk about that. But like our interests, our values, and in our family life, like a lot of it's very similar. What we like to do is similar. Like, so it's very interesting. It's great in a lot of ways. And then in other ways, you could argue that, hey, sometimes you want a super nerd coming in and analyzing all the deals for you and just giving it to you on a silver platter, where we sometimes have to force ourselves to really like dive into the numbers and things. And we'll get there, but just throwing that as we never have to really worry about each other in a lot of ways, like where like the trust factor. I think if you ever have to worry about that, partnerships can fail fast.
Yeah, 100%. Thanks for letting me riff about that, guys, for a bit. That was really, really, really valuable. So what would you say is what's your message to the world that you guys are trying to promote? You guys share an Instagram page together, called the WealthJuice Official with the check mark. What's your message to the world?
Sure. I can start here and I'll let Corey fill in here. But for me, I think we'd like at this point, based on our trajectory of where we are in life and going from just 4 years ago, 0 units all the way to 70, and then building our net worths up to roughly $2 million, $1 million a piece, is like the power. We would not be where we are without our first deal. And we believe in, I got to trademark this, but I believe in the power of one. And that's what Corey and I have talked about. That it's like getting your first deal will completely change your life. And it turned us from consumer, like going out and buying the flashy, shiny things and just going like, to opening another world for us where we've become investors. And like our vision, it took, the cliche book that every real estate investor reads at one point in their life is Rich Dad, Poor Dad. But that mindset shift that you go through, once you start bringing that into real life and you actually try it and you start buying those assets that actually give you cash flow on a monthly basis, you're like, whoa, there's a totally different side of the world and vision of like what my future could be out there. And I would never know, because school taught me to become an employee. They didn't teach me how to become a business owner or an entrepreneur. We had to teach ourselves. We had to go read. We had to go listen to the podcast. And we had to pick apart all the information we heard from successful people and try to synthesize it and build our own roadmap and get there. And I think we've done a good job of that. It's an ever-changing thing. But our message to people today is the power of one. Get your first deal. It is going to completely change your life, and it's going to open more doors than you could ever imagine and give you the confidence in yourself to go take down other deals and try other things. And so for us, that has been the cornerstone message that we've been sharing with our friends, family, community for a while.
One of the things that I want to hear, Corey, I want to hear your thoughts on this. One of the things I preach a lot is that just really relates to everything you just shared, Ryan. That's so beautiful is momentum is everything. Like, you have a huge rock. The hardest part is getting it going. And then once it's got movement, adjusting is way easier than actually getting it moving in the first place. So I wish people understood more the power of momentum. And you guys are taking on, what I hear when you say the power of one is like, you get going. Like, let's start the journey. Not the perfect one, just getting the first one. That's awesome, man.
Yeah. Get 85% of the way there and just take action. Like that's really where it is. And a lot of people just get into analysis paralysis and just keep analyzing deals, keep reading, they find another strategy, right? And it's just like, it becomes, you're drinking out of a fire hose and you're like, whoa, I don't know where to start. They get stuck. For us, we're just like, and I credit this to Corey. And this goes back to the beginning of our story, and we'll tie it up here and he can go. It's like when I saw him, we talked about buying the investment properties, right? We always had a deal that we were like, we're going to get one by this point. I bought my primary residence. He bought his primary. He turned his primary into a house hack. And then I just see this picture of Corey with a finger in the air, just a one, in front of this like little tiny place in Jersey. And I'm like, what is that? And I read the caption. He's like, I got my first investment property. I did it. On to the next. And I DM'd him right away. I was like, dude, you did it. Like, you dog. Like, this was after we stopped living together for like a year, and I was getting settled, got married and all that. And he was just, moved to that direction. I'm like, he did it. Like, he said what he was going to do, and he followed the promise that he made to himself and us. So I'm like, I'm in. What are we doing? Let's go. And so then he took the reins from there. He's very good quick start. And he just like, I have to analyze things over and over and over. And like, dude, we could do this. He goes, dude, shut up. We're doing this. Let's go. Let's start. I'm like, okay. So that's where it started.
Yeah. And the only thing I would add to that is, it's funny you say that, because we don't really look at each other like I'm the visionary and Ryan's the integrator, but it has kind of adopted along that, because it's kind of my idea to like, or not my idea, but like I was the first one to get into the investing game on that side. And then I was like, let's start a podcast, and Ryan's always game. And like, he's the one who's like figuring the stuff out that I'm not good at. Right. So it's like, we kind of have adopted that a little bit. I do think that the only other message I would say is that, and it kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier, is that if you can pour into other people and you can build community around something you love or something that you do, your life is going to be much better lived. And this isn't about I hate to say something like it's not about the money, because the money really does matter, Sam, but it's about the optionality to do what you love or what you really like doing with your days. To me, I have no interest in making $1 million a month, or whatever it is, $500,000 a month selling insurance. It doesn't light me up. I don't want to do it. You couldn't offer me the money to do it. So I think there are small circumstances where it's like, okay, I'll grind it out and do this thing for a couple years that I really don't like doing, for a chance at a different life. But my thing is like, you put your message out in the universe, you build a community around that. And the community doesn't have to be like something that's like an online community like we're doing, but it's like, who are your teammates? Who are your people? And then you can wake up every day with a fire and then actually enjoy the hours spent doing all the things that you want to do in the pursuit of the money. But it can't just be about the money. If it is, I think you're going to find this innate emptiness at some point in your life. You're going to run into this wall of like, every single person that is a multimillionaire says it, that if you don't do what you love, it's like the money's just like, you have other problems, and it's not as glamorous as it looks. And we don't have the luxury of that perspective yet, right? So I'm only saying that because we're not multi-millionaires, but I've heard it over and over. And I'm like, why not start now? Why not think with that now before getting there and then having to turn around and be like, I built this whole empire that I don't even love. So that is,
but you are living that, Corey, because earlier on in this podcast, you already said, hey, what's the journey of the destination? You said it's neither, it's the company, right? Yeah. So like, if that resonates with you, you're living that, saying, okay, there is a journey. Yes, there's goals. Yes, there's a shared vision, but I'm more interested in living, doing this with people that I enjoy and that I'm having fun with. So I think just, you're teaching a principle. I think that's a beautiful principle that I hope people write down, and just want to reflect back to you guys that you're living that.
It's a constant reminder. We have to keep reminding ourselves that, but yeah.
Oh, really quick, just to tie this onto what Corey says, like, I think people think we're crazy probably because we both could have continued W-2 jobs and just kept increasing our income, right? Like, I think at this point we know what our value is. I know we could, if we go and find a job and people realize what we built on the side, they're like, dude, okay. Like, these guys, they got it dialed, like talking KPIs, dissecting things, like higher level business. Like in our W-2s, you're sitting next to people to your left and your right, and they're just talking like it's like, sometimes like daycare, where like people are just kind of like complaining about the smallest things everywhere. And like, oh my gosh, like you have no idea what's really out there and what it really takes to build something. And so it's just a different perspective where we are a little crazy. Like, we put in 80 plus hours a week to have the W-2 on one side. And then on the other side, we're building our own thing. But to Corey's point, there's purpose behind it. And I think that's what excites us to wake up every day. And it doesn't really feel like, I don't feel like I'm putting in 80 hours a week. Some weeks I do, when it's like some like menial task where I'm like, oh, like this one's brutal, but to know it's driving this ship, like the whole thing further to do these tasks, it's like, wow, it's exciting. And then when you see a couple deals come to fruition, like, whoa, that's why you do it. And like we can get into the real estate side of things too, but like we had a couple big boy deals and we're like, whoa, dude, how long would that have taken us to get there in our W-2 job? And like, we started putting the numbers out and like, well, get a couple of these, we're going to be good. And a lot of our stuff's like, we have a lot of money in the ground right now. So these deals start refining, some get sold, like we're going to be fine. Like, we're very excited about that. And that's what we keep doing. We're like, dude, just shoot for the moon, put these things in the future, even if they're 5 to 7 year plans, or some of them are 30, We're going to be good. Our future selves will thank us. It's just balancing that future income with the now income to survive, and then make sure a lot of these are coming through where, the business becomes sustainable, where you can eventually kind of weave yourself out and start getting into more creative projects, because that's what we find that we like the most. So
yeah, it's so interesting. I always think of, every time I get a new property, I always think of, a lot of the properties I buy, I'll put on these 30-year fixed mortgages. And I'll think of what you just shared, Ryan, as far as like, I'm paying, even if this thing made $0 in profit for 30 years, I'm paying 30-year-older self. And obviously, if you're younger and you're starting this journey younger, that's still a pretty young version of you, right? Like, it's a decently young version of you. That property will be 2x, 3x what it's worth now, completely paid off just from debt pay down, which is one of the benefits of real estate. So it really is like a really cool way to like project out what you're going to be worth just by seeing what you would pay down in debt from these properties you guys are buying. That's really interesting. You guys posted something on your Instagram. You said the goal is to retire at 40 with cash flowing assets, not 65 with a pension. Start today. Rocket emoji. So what I want you both to kind of hit on, and we don't have to belabor this point because I do want to get into some strategies and how you guys think about real estate. I do want to get into that. But first, talk to us a little bit about new versus old. The old way to retire, probably what you guys were taught initially. It's really, I feel like retirement, the word, has changed dramatically in one generation. Literally from my parents to me. And I'm assuming you guys are in the same boat, but I want you to talk about, okay, what is the old vision? How applicable is that today to us? Is it still applicable for some people? And then what happens? What's this new vision? I'm actually curious, like, how you guys really latched on to that new vision as well.
I can go here a little bit. I think this is out of necessity in a way, Sam. For example, the way my parents, invention, right? Yeah, the way my parents grew up, or our parents, is you could work and one of you work, maybe if it's the male, it's a female, it doesn't really matter. Like one part of the relationship works and the other one raises the kids, and you make money and you put it in a 401k, you buy a house, you have a dog and 2.5 kids in a yard. And that works.
Take offense, right?
Yeah. And that worked before the world changed. Y2K, internet, inflation. There's always changes. It's not an excuse, right? It's just like the world has shifted. And I think, unfortunately, if you're not investing, maybe you could still, if you have a high paying job, you can still take that route. There's nothing wrong with that if you enjoy what you do and you want to take that route. But I think that it's a lot harder to do. It's a lot harder to buy real estate than it used to be. It's a lot harder to get, the housing market's crazy. The way we look at it is like, you only have one shot at this whole thing. Why would you not, at some level, put your chips in and say, I'm going to try to do this unconventionally to what I was taught? Because to me, we have a little bit of a freedom already. We're not fully financially free. We still have to make money. We have a little bit of freedom. It's like, I can go here on a Tuesday. I can go to the gym. I can take a trip. I can do these things. And it's like, I take gratitude around that and having this, living the life that you want to live along the way, as opposed to getting to 65 and thinking, this is it. I made it to retirement. And then, unfortunately, you could get sick in a year, or you could, at any point, something negative could happen. So there is a finite balance of building the assets and thinking about the future and thinking about 30 years from now, Sam, and having that money paid down, and also taking it and saying, I want to live as much as I can within my means, smart, do the right things, make the right investments, and do it now so that I don't have to feel like I have to wait to celebrate my existence when I'm 65 years old. So there is a little bit of a shift from old to new. And when we say retire at 40, it's funny, we're approaching that in 8 years or so, 7 years. I think we don't mean stop working, right? We just mean living a life of optionality and doing what you want, when you want, with who you want. And we don't have to be billionaires to do that. So that's kind of where the thought process comes from. And Rye, if you have more to add, great.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head, and you mentioned the optionality. I think at that point, by the time we get to 40, when you become so good at something, and I'm not saying we're there yet, but I think what we found is there's a lot of people, high level people, that are making tons of money, and they just figured out the game, right? Once you get to that level, it's very hard to just say, okay, I'm good. I'm going to retire now. It becomes a game and you become like a little bit addicted to it. And like that gives you the rush, right? A lot of these people, they could retire at 40, but they're like, I'm going to keep grinding. I'm going to keep going because it's the next mountain peak, right? The false summits. And they're like, well, if I did this, I could potentially do this. And that's what the cycle, it kind of keeps you going, right? It keeps that drive. But then also at some point you need to check yourself and be like, well, when is enough as enough, right? Like, you kind of have to construct your life as you construct a business in a way. And that sounds kind of weird, but it's like, how are you built? Like, what do you want out of life? If you've built the business, you made all this money and you have money coming in, it's like, okay, now what gets your juices flowing? Do you want to be able to just work out when you want to work out during the day? You say you want to spend more time with family, but what does that look like? So you have to really architect what you want your life to look like. Do you want to be traveling all the time? What do you want to see? What have you not done? And like, then you can challenge yourself. I think a lot of it, I told Corey, this was like just a funny one way back in the day. I was like, dude, when we become millionaires, I'm maybe just going to go take a couple acting classes, just like try it out. Like just put myself in like a different uncomfortable position, right? Because I was like, dude, I would love to be on a TV show or love it to be on the movies. Then I thought about it more. I'm like, dude, all these people infiltrating your lives and I see all these celebrities. I'm like, I actually don't want that. But it would be cool to just put yourself out there and get on you get a taste of it when you go through certain things. And I was just a fun thing for me. And I was like, Corey, I might do some improv classes, things like that. And he's like, dude, just do it now. Like, why would you wait? Like, you don't need the money. Like, go do why you're doing this. I'm like, yeah, it makes sense. So that's just an interesting thought. But overall, at the end of the day, I think the world has changed. You can, your phone that you have in your pockets, the mini computer, like people that didn't exist before. And you can make millions of dollars from that little computer in your pocket. And to be able to do that, that's what I think shifted the world a little bit. Whereas like you could be on the other side of the planet making money while someone's sitting at their job, grinding the W-2 out. And I also think I want to tie this back to gratitude as the last thing that I mentioned on this topic, but like you brought that up. And I guess through us vocalizing it too, I didn't even realize how much we do value gratitude. And I think a lot of it is like, we see people that are doing things that are so difficult on a daily basis. Like we have a lot of like family members or friends that are blue collar workers, and to know they get up and go every day, get up at 6, they're out in the cold, no matter what, cold, hot, whatever the weather is, grinding. Like they could be doing paving, they could be construction workers, they could be electricians, like things with their hands all day. And I see their bodies break down over time. And I'm like, and I have friends that have done this right out of school, right? Or maybe they didn't go to school. And Corey and I are like, still like limber. We're ready to go. Like we're using our brain all day, right? And we're working out. These guys are getting home and they're exhausted. And then sprinkle a couple kids on top of that, sprinkle your health on top of that. Like, I'm like, oh my God, it's so much harder. Like we picked the right thing. It could be so much worse. So it's trying to find the balance and like live in the moment, be where your feet are, but also still strive for something better, because you need that carrot. You need to be chasing something, or else what are you doing? Like it's not, you get into the lazy cycle. And so it's just a lot of different things, balancing health, wealth, your social life, your family life. It's all a struggle in some way, and everyone's struggling in different ways. Like, but you do have we realize we do have a leg up on a lot of people in certain things. So it's like, appreciate that. And we can't complain about what we've, kind of gone through.
I did construction for my first few working years. So like from 14 years old to 17. And I can 100% relate with like, you're out at 5:30, you're building that house. Like it could be snowing, you're still building the house. It's raining, you're still like, you're doing like, otherwise you don't get paid. Like you get up and you go. So I'm just so impressed with your guys' balanced perspective on life. Like you guys are definitely grinders. You're definitely hustlers. You've got a shared vision that you're moving towards fast. And yet I'm very impressed with how you can find time to say, yeah, I think I will take some acting classes, or just find time to live that balance. It's amazing. One of my favorite quotes comes from this guy who wrote a book called Think and Grow Rich, is Napoleon Hill. And he said, desire is the starting point of all achievement. And I think we've already kind of touched on this a lot, honestly, in your story up until this point, of just like how you guys kind of built up some dissatisfaction. You got these cars, you got these payments, you realized like, hey, there's got to be a better way. But would you guys agree? Like, I just wanted your opinion on that statement, actually, each of you, of like, if you were coaching, I'm trying to like put myself in the audience's shoes, maybe someone who hasn't taken action yet. Maybe they're hearing me talk a lot about co-living, or hearing you guys talk about your get out of your W-2s. Like, I want to kind of like transition this to like, where does it start? Like, where does it start and how? And you guys have spent also a lot of time studying all these different strategies and like, okay, and you guys are coaching people now through this, right? To their first property. So I'm kind of asking a couple of different questions. But maybe first do you think it starts with desire? Like, or what Napoleon Hill, the author, would say, like a burning desire? Is that where you would say it needs to start for someone, or no?
Can I ask you a question on that? Are you talking specifically about some like the engine that drives people, like the chip on their shoulder, or are you talking about just like starting your journey of investing? And I just want to make sure I answer correctly.
Yeah, I think I'm specifically asking about like getting out of what maybe we would call the rat race or your W-2, like that like journey that has to start somewhere, right? Going into like this new retirement versus this old model that people have been taught for their whole lives.
Sure. I don't know if it's going to take a moment. For everyone's going to have a different piece in their journey, right? Maybe you get let go of your job, and or your friend gets let go of their job, and you realize, whoa, like we only had one income stream. If you lose that, you're screwed. You got to go find another one. You might have to move. You might have to start over. I think for us, it was just really, you look around and you see the really big houses as you're driving through neighborhoods, and you see these fancy cars. You see people at the top of their game. You're watching the NBA, you're watching the NFL, and like, there's other people out there doing it. And why not me? And so I think that frames it there. Like, it's the starting point. When you realize every person is just a human, there's no different situation. Maybe some people are gifted a little bit more with their body type or something like that to make them fit a mold for something that they could go into. They still have to work really hard for that, because there's a lot of other people that might have that body type, but they didn't have that desire to get there. And so I don't know, this might just be for me, and people who disagree with this and probably don't like this, but growing up, two people that I looked up to. One was my dad. He had he ran a construction company and still does, but he always taught me, he's like, dude, you're always going to want to work for yourself at some capacity, because you're going to be capped on what your true potential is by going and checking in for someone else. Like, since then, things have sort of changed as the world has changed. And he's like, dude, that's a great job you got there, man. Like, he's realizing how hard it is to maintain this for 60 years. Right. But I will say he instilled in a young age, he's like, I had a job at 14, and I had jobs ever since. I was landscaping, I was doing construction. I was the guy out grinding those hours that I mentioned to you. And I was like, I can't do this forever. Like, I can't. So, I start there, and then I looked up to my dad. And then on Sundays, I grew up in New England. We're watching Tom Brady every Sunday. And I know that sounds, people are like, oh, I'm not a big fan of Tom Brady. I don't like what he stands for, whatever, like lost the family and all this. But that guy showed me so many different times you can come back from being down 28-3, losing ACL injury. There's so many things not going right. Drafted 199. And I got to every Sunday had this, like, I had to watch him. I became obsessed, dude. And I studied everything he did. And I'm like, oh my God, like he wasn't supposed to make it. He was the seventh quarterback in Michigan. He worked his way up. It's like, how did he figure it out? He wanted it more than anyone else. And then he pivoted his body. He pivoted his brain. He just cleared distractions. So I took all that and put it into my life. I'm like, this guy could do it. It might have taken me a while to realize that and to understand and like build my roadmap. But once I realized other people were just people and they got to their game, I'm like, I have a short amount of time here. I don't know what I'm going to leave this earth. Right. And like, I just feel like I'm meant for more. So you kind of have to force the envelope at some time. You got to take your shot and and take the risk. And I don't say go quit your job, but for us, like seeing, having the conversation with Corey, I realized like, he got his property, right? And like, I had the primary residence. That was cool, but it wasn't bringing me any extra income. And I was like, dude, he just took the leap and did it. I got to stop overanalyzing. I just like got over to Corey's house. And I was like, dude, let's just map this out. Let's try another one. Let's do one together, see if it works. And it did. And then, of course, things don't always go the right way. We had to deal with that house later burned down. We had to figure that out. So like, that's an investment property. But I'm saying we've learned to pivot. And I think we both have this internal drive. I don't know what it relates back to. I think some of it is from, maybe how you grew up and maybe situations you've been through in your life. And everybody has that little moment where they're like, someone doesn't believe in you and you get pissed off and you always like, I'm going to prove you wrong. And keeping that chip. And I just remind myself of the chip every day. It's like Brady has 7 Super Bowl rings, but he still doesn't feel like it was enough. And like, he knows he wants to be the best version of himself. And I know that's tough to argue with someone that like, well, you lose he picked the game over his family. Right. And that's tough, but he knew he was put on this earth for something specific and he found it and he wanted to be the best that he could possibly be. And so I just say there's you always have to have someone to chase and look after and look up to and to kind of like drive you a little bit. And then I think you also have to have some innate desire to keep you going through, because every day it's not exciting to wake up and do it. It's hard. And you have to do it when it's like your character and who you are is what you do when people aren't watching and the doors are closed and the lights are off. And I think forcing ourselves to just get better every single day, and people seeing us in the next 10 years are going to be like, whoa, dude, like you guys kept like, how'd you do it? I was like, well, remember that podcast we spent every single week doing, and every single day me talking to Corey, and it was getting annoying. You're like, why does this guy keep calling you and texting you? That's why we did it. We did it day in and day out, and we forced ourselves to do it. Like, we made it happen. It does. My answer to you is no one's going to come save you. I'm bringing it back to your initial question. We realized enough was enough. No one was going to come save us. We were going to turn, we weren't even 30 yet, but we realized we'd be 40 and 50 before we knew it. And we would have no properties unless we, Ryan and Corey, went and did it. And that you just have to go take action.
I got nothing after that.
Mic drop. Yeah, that's good. Well, guys, yeah, thank you for that, Ryan. That was amazing, man. What I want to talk strategy a little bit. I want to talk about how does someone get into their first rental property?
Yeah, I can take this.
Let's say someone's this far in this podcast, they're inspired, they want to take their shot, they want to move forward. What strategies do people start to deploy to get into their first deal? Where do they start on that journey?
I think it depends entirely on your life and your situation and where you live. But if I were to start over, I would do something similar to what I did. And I think anybody can make a sacrifice for a couple years and house hack. Anybody. And the reason why house hacking is so advantageous for people, and if people don't know what that is, I'm sure a lot of people do, but it would basically be like living in one unit of either a 2-family or a 3-family, or living in one bedroom and renting out the other bedrooms or the other units. Okay. And a lot of times you can put down as little as 3.5% to do that. My first property, I bought it was a $250,000 home. It was a 3-bed, 2-bath. I lived in one room and I rented out the other 2 rooms to good friends of mine, and it covered the mortgage. What did that do for me? Well, it explained something very simple to me. Instead of spending $1,100 a month in rent, I was now net zero. I was spending zero, building the asset, paying down, had more money for me to go then dump it into the next property. So it's momentum, back to what you said, Sam, about what's the best way to start. Well, I believe house hacking is one. I think that's one. If you've never bought a property before, it's making a sacrifice to live in one unit. Maybe you just share a wall. You don't have to share rooms, but you share a wall. You put 3.5%, 5% down. You live in the property. You rent out the other units. You become a landlord on training wheels. You learn the process. You learn the game. You collect rent. And oftentimes you can get away with doing that in an area that you'd actually want to live in, and it could be a property that's $400,000, $500,000, $600,000. And instead of you paying $2,500 a month in rent, what if you ended up paying $1,100 or $1,400 towards your mortgage if you subtracted the other rents that you were getting? That's still a net positive. So you don't have to house hack and you have to break even, right? It's harder to do that these days. But if you could house hack and get the training wheels going, you're going to have a lot more extra cash for you to then go, okay, I'm going to go dump this into another property. If you live in San Francisco, if you live in Miami, if you live in New York City, it's probably a lot harder to do that. But this is why I was talking about building the network. Ryan and I invest in Arizona. We invest in New Hampshire. We do invest in our backyard in New Jersey. I have a property in Florida. All of this is network. It's all people on the ground that we really trust. In fact, our next venture, the 2 of us, is going to be buying in the Florida market. Now, the reason we're able to do that is because we have created a network of people on the ground who can find deals for us. And they win because they can wholesale deals to us. And then we do the renovations. We buy it through a hard money lender. We do the renovations, we refinance, and then we keep them as rentals. So these are people that I've had to go through the last 2 years of building the trust with this person. In fact, I bought the property that I have down there through this person. They found it. They made money on the sale of it because they were the agent. And now they trust us to execute. And that is kind of where the trust factor comes from. So I hope I answered your question, but I'm saying house hack would be one way. Or if you're in an expensive market, you can invest out of state. And you can do that if you work really hard at your job and you can build up your income. And it comes back to living below your means and creating a financial house, getting that in order, having extra income, and then you can deploy it. And it starts with like, are you around a community of people that are doing that every day that can show you how to do it? Or you think you have to do it as a lone wolf because some Marvel movie told you that, it's like, surround yourself with people that you want to be like. And that's the approach that we've taken.
Yeah. And I've got two follow-ups to that, Corey. That's beautiful, man. How did you build that network? Are we talking like, I'd love for people to walk away with some specific strategies. Are you like cold calling people? Are you DMing people on Instagram? Are you going to Facebook groups? Like, if someone wants to invest at a state, I hear that a lot. That's a big, drive, because there's a lot of expensive markets right now. So people want to invest in markets that can cash flow. How do you build that?
Great question. Okay. The way that I would do it doesn't have to be the way that we did it. The way we did it was starting a podcast. And then we told our story. And Ryan, his first question to me is like, is anybody going to listen to us, dude? We have three properties. And I'm like, well, I think that people latch on to the person who's authentic, who wants to show you, let's grow together, as opposed to, hey, I built 1,000 units in 2004. This is how I did it. Well, good luck, because it's 2024 now, right? So we started the podcast and we were able to grow organically. The first person to take a chance on us was Chad Carson. He came on our show, and then there was proof of concept, and more people started to come on our show. We show value to them every single time we have a guest on. We say, how can we help you? Right? That's the number one thing. How can we help you? Not cold calling people. How can we? That was the way for us to get in rooms with people that we technically didn't deserve to be in rooms with. So that's one way. Now it's so much easier. Now there are online communities of people that you can build your own community with. And this is a quick plug. We have a community teaching people how to buy their first or next rental property in the next 3 to 6 months. And then you're in the room with us. And then you're in the room with the people that we know. And then from there, if you're giving value, you're getting value. And before you know it, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, and you become the person that is a couple steps ahead of you in due time. So I would say join a community. Pay the money. It doesn't have to be ours. But spend the time and effort and research and join a community and get yourself in the rooms with people who have done what you were looking to do. And it's never been easier. The world is flat. And Ryan said this to me the other day. He's like, when you say the world is flat, do you mean like you're a conspiracy theorist and the world's flat? I'm like, no, the internet makes the world flat. Like you can do this in any... where Sam, you're in
I'm stealing that. I'm in Charlotte. Yeah.
You're in Charlotte, right?
Yeah.
And we're in Philadelphia, and we're having a conversation as if we're in the same room together. And we've already built a relationship that I'm excited to see flourish and go to the next stage, whatever that means. We've introduced you to somebody. You're going to introduce us to someone. Like, look at that reciprocal. What the answer to your question is: do what we do right now. Like, and you don't have to start your own podcast, but get in the rooms with people, and that can be virtually.
My second follow-up to that, before I go to you, Ryan, is you mentioned living below your means and just how important that is. And a term that I've become more and more familiar with as I've watched friends and even myself is lifestyle creep. I did my personal expenses the other day for the first time in probably like a year, because someone was like, you really need to get a better handle on that. And I was like, yeah, I'm making plenty of money. I'm good. And I was like, holy crap, I'm spending way more money than I thought I was. So how do you coach people through when they're living above their means? And they've got this lifestyle creep, and maybe they were living below their means, but just like stuff gets more expensive. I mean, that's part of the truth too. How do you help someone through that? How do you fight that? I guess is really what I'm asking.
Yeah. So this is like, it comes back to habits, and it takes 21 days to create or form a habit. And it comes back to, where does your dopamine come from? And if it comes from spending, like, we have to change it. You have to change it if it just comes from spending. And maybe that's it. Maybe that's the root of it. Like, I get a dopamine hit when I spend money on, whatever, a fancy car, or I spend money on the latest, like I love the golf, right? And so like, are you spending your money all on golf? And maybe you want to become a YouTube golfer, and like, that's your path too. But that's kind of neither here nor there. I think it stems from habits. And then I would say, if you're already in the position of needing to reduce your lifestyle, I would say first attack the highest interest debt that you can. And that's credit cards, right? If you can set the money aside and attack the highest interest, you can use the avalanche method, which is like attacking the highest interest first, and then or maybe that's the snowball. Sorry, the snowball would be attacking the highest interest first, and then you can go down to student loans and start to pay that off. Like, but I would say it kind of starts between the years. Like, how do you, if you want to live a life that, people don't get to, you have to do things that people don't do, So, that would be the one way to start to get your financial house in order. And then I use an app called Monarch, and Monarch is great. It's like It's basically like, if people know what Mint is, it's like a full net worth budgeting tracker all in one. And I was listening to Alex Hormozy the other day, and he says like, you should be looking at your bank accounts every day. And I thought that was interesting because he's like, you need to know exactly where your money's going. To me, I thought that was overkill because I do. I look at it every day. And he's like, you should be looking at it every day because you need to know where this money's going out. And if you understand what gets measured gets tracked, and what gets tracked gets done. I believe that's the quote. I might have butchered it, but you have to know where these things are going, and you can't play the I'll ignore it game. And if you do that, and then you live below your means, year, 2 years, you're going to have some money, and then you're going to be able to play the game. So that would be my recommendation.
No, man, I think that's super solid. Ryan, I want to go to you, man. You made a post not too long ago specifically talking about using dual incomes. I think there's a lot of people out there with dual incomes. I saw a post recently. Someone posted on a Facebook page that I'm a part of, where they were like, hey, me and my wife make, and it was in some like between the two of them, I think they were making like $500,000, maybe more. But he was like, 45% of that immediately goes to taxes. And I was like, wow. Right. And then he kind of put all of his other expenses in there, and he wasn't making that much by the end of the day, by the time he lived his lifestyle. So anyway, you made this post about dual income. I think people are in this situation. Doesn't necessarily mean they're rich, but how would you mind sharing just a little bit about that post, how you think about dual income, maybe how you're using it? And then anything else you want to add to like the strategy to getting your first rental property and the power of one, as you guys say it?
Sure. So I'll start here. I think you need to start by getting on the same page. Let's just call it dual incomes like a spouse, right? So like there's my wife and I, and getting on the same page early on, like when you first get into a relationship, you're not really sure. You kind of like are walking on eggshells. You're like, okay, like how is the money thing going to come up? And then eventually get engaged. And then as you get married, you're like, someone's going to have to handle the bills, right? Someone's going to have to kind of handle the household like finances. And if you try to attack things like you're both doing it, it kind of can get a little bit dicey where, you know, like one person's watching one account and then the other person's watching another. For us, it's been really easy to just like, Ryan is the money guy. Like he's handling it. He's going to make sense of this, because she truly has no interest. And she trusts me to do the right thing, which is, it's another reason why I don't want to mess it up, right? Because the trust is put into you to do the right thing and invest in the right things. And so I'll start there, but getting on the same page and kind of like, allocating the roles, right? Like who's going to be in charge of what. But when it comes down to dual incomes, right? You have two incomes coming in. For us, we agreed, we were like, hey, listen, if you take care of the mortgage, I will take care of everything else. Meaning I will invest our money. I will find the new projects to go into, and I'll handle everything else. I mean, we do automatic bill pay and things like that. I manage all of our investment accounts. I manage our bank accounts and things like that. And so everyone has a different way of doing things. But to me, it keeps it simple because, you know, we'll do like a monthly check-in, be like, okay, where we're at, how do you feel about this? And like, I'm not like giving her an allowance, right? Like she has her own money come in, I have my own money come in, we combo it, it's all dumped into one account, right? We share it. Then we also have our own separate accounts where it's like play money, where it's like, if she wants to go buy a dress or something like that, and like she just, you know, I'm not going to check her on that, right? Like it's her money. She's not going to check me on mine. And so I think it's healthy to have a little bit of separation there too, to be like, you know, because anything that gets pulled out of that joint account that ends up becoming the investing account, you just kind of feel like you're pulling a little bit away from the future. So there's a lot to orchestrate there. I think it's person to person, and that's kind of what Corey and I talk about. We kind of help people get their house in order in our program. It's like, okay, where's the money coming in? Who's got what? How's it allocated? How are you investing? But truthfully, what we do is we set up automatic bill pay and then automatic investing. So like, I already know what I'm investing in without even doing it. Like I preset it, and then just the money that comes in, a piece of the pie, like X amount goes automatically to this. Some goes to the brokerage. We each do our 401ks. We have a real estate fund, and then we have a checking/savings account that's just like for the emergency fund. Then we have infinite banking on the side, or like whole life insurance, and there's a lot of different things. I might be forgetting a couple, but we have a lot of different intricate pieces, and I've been managing that for us for a long time. We also have a financial planner that comes in over the top and really helps me orchestrate this and helps me think in decades versus thinking in, you know, daily or yearly terms. So it's building that team once again, right? Like it's still like, if you treat it like a business, it'll happen like a business. But if you just get really lax on your finances, Corey and I would say the foundation starts here. If you don't have your financial house in order, you can't, in those habits, right? You can't get to the next level because you're constantly stuck in you're just paying your bills with the money that comes in. You're living paycheck to paycheck. You're never going to have that delta, that extra amount of cash that you need dump into other things. So it's an entire game. What was the second part of your question? I don't know if I answered your question totally right.
I really want to highlight though something you said about the automatic withdrawals, because if it's there, I don't know about you guys, but if it's in my account, it burns a hole in my pocket and I want to go spend it on something, right? And so if it's gone and I don't see it and it's getting invested, I have some whole life insurance policies too. I've had a couple guests on this podcast to talk about that strategy, the infinite banking strategy, and like it's gone. It's just like you forget about it almost, but it's there. And it's building. I think real estate's the same way. I think that's a huge. I just want to highlight that because I think that's a huge, powerful strategy. And I was just
one comment there. Yeah. You asked kind of like a how to a little bit, Sam. So Ryan he came up with this idea the other day, and he actually did it with his wife. And because I think a lot of people are probably going to hear that and be like, "Great, sounds awesome," but I can't get my spouse on board. Like, they don't care. They don't want to do this stuff. And it's funny. We were interviewing basically somebody to come into our coaching program, and they ended up not joining. And the number one reason was like, well, me and my spouse are not on the same page. And our objection to that is, well, how about this? How about if you two are rowing the boat in the same direction, how about you read one book that they want you to read and they read one book that you want them to read? Vice versa. And Ryan did this with his wife, and his wife read Rich Dad Poor Dad. And all it needs to do is just say, "Oh, I get it. This is why you're doing what you're doing." Yeah. And I think Ryan read like a Christmas Village or something. It's like, so yeah, perfect, right? But I think that's a good strategy to ask, your spouse, awesome. Ask of your spouse, so that you can say, if you're not aligned, get aligned. And then that's one way to maybe help push the envelope a little bit.
Yeah. She's just a bookworm, and I was like, how can I get her on the same page without her literally shutting her eyes and turning her brain off as I'm trying to explain this, butchering it early on in the process. Oh, passive income investing. She's like, what? We're still talking? So I was like, okay, let's do a little challenge here. You read one book that I want you to read. I'll read one book that you want to read. You can pick any book. And she's like, okay, because I knew for a fact she would read mine because she reads so many books in a year. And I was like, okay. Hand her that book, and then I, clawed my way through Christmas on Nantucket or whatever it's called. But it was fine. And I think it's just something, because I know people are listening and laughing. They're like, dude, that's a good idea. Just do it. And just have them read the book. It's not going to teach you how to do everything. It just, as Corey mentioned, it changes your mindset and understands, oh, that's why you want to do that. You're actually buying us more income. You're like putting the money to good use because you're putting your dollars to use, and your money's going to make money. Okay, I'm on board with that. And like, I get it now. And so there's also little plays in like Robert Kiyosaki talks about his wife, Kim, and like how they work together. And it's like, it frames it really well for both sides of the coin. So we've done that, and it's worked out. And I don't know, we always try to find ways to balance, like, okay, how do you get your spouse excited? Now it's come to the point where it's like, well, when there's a lot of money in the account, they're good. Like she's like, okay, we're good. Like he figured it out. Well, that book worked, so like, and that's why I'm able to get away with doing the podcast so many nights a week and talking to Corey pretty much every night of the week. And like, just things like that, where it's like we're building the life that we said we wanted to build, and it's coming to fruition. They're not all beautiful days. There's rainy days and storm and all that too. But it's like it's for a good reason. As long as there's balance and you're putting your spouse first and your family first. And that's what I do. It's like, we defend those times, and like the business never should come ahead of that if push comes to shove. So it's hard to do. I will say, it sounds like, oh, you guys are just reading right out of a book and is giving it to me answers on a podcast, where it's like, no, we've tried this, and it's all about balance, and every day has its own challenges. So I don't want anyone to think it's super easy. There's just little life hacks that you can do along the way.
Yeah, that's a gold nugget for sure, guys. That's beautiful. Well, guys, I've taken up so much of your time here. This has been really fun. I want to just end with, if both of you would just kind of give your advice for someone starting in the journey, just put a bow on it for people. I think maybe I'll throw this kind of like a little teaser out there. One of the last questions I wanted to ask you was just, there's so many thoughts and excuses, quite frankly, of what could get in people's way from going to no properties to the first one or the second one or the third one or whatever. It could be no money, no time. I don't know how. Money's not important. I've heard that one before. That was the one a bunch of my friends told me, money's not important. I'll just do it. All these other things. I don't know what strategy to use. If you just had to kind of give somebody a nugget as we end this here, and you guys have been so generous. Thank you for being on. So many gold nuggets. How would you help people get into action and get past all of those things that can just rumble around in your head and keep you in that analysis paralysis?
I think it starts with clarity of what you actually want with your life. And if you don't want to build a real estate portfolio, then you shouldn't. But if you want more time freedom and more ability to do the things that you love, I think it's a great way to start. So an action step, and I've kind of already said this, but it's like, 1, get the clarity. 2, get around the people that have done what you're doing previously. So if you want to be a real estate investor, you got to put your message out there at some way. It's whether that's talking about it at family dinners, whether that's talking about it with people at work that might not go the way you want, whether it's talking about it with friends or talking about it online. The more you talk about it, people are going to associate you with that person and believe that you can become a real estate investor before you even do it. Then the next step would be either join a community, find people that have done what you're looking to do, that are not 10 steps ahead, but a couple steps ahead, and find the person who has 7 units. How did they do it, right? And then offer to do something for them for free. Figure out where there is some sort of hole in their life or their business and say, yeah, I'll make that website for you. Or I'll, my girlfriend's a graphic designer. I'll design a logo for you. No, don't worry. Don't worry about it. You don't have to pay me for it. Now you have created value in that person's life, and then the reciprocation effect will come into play at some point, and you are able to associate with somebody who's maybe a couple steps ahead of you without having to say, hey, can I pick your brain? Like, let's get coffee. That person may or may not want to. Maybe they do. That's great. But those would be the steps I would take. Is all about is getting in the right rooms. And then if you're looking for a community that can help you in terms of market analysis, mindset, deal analysis, closing, due diligence, property management, systems, we can help. Or find a community that also gives you the tools to press onward and get you over specifically analysis paralysis, because that can last forever if you let it. So hopefully those are some steps.
And just on that, before Ryan goes, and that was going to be my follow-up question, was like, if people want to get additional coaching with you guys, where do they go for that, Corey? If they want to follow you, how do they find you guys?
Yeah, the best way to get in touch with us is our Instagram at WealthJuice Official, and shoot us a DM. So once you shoot us a DM, we'll send you over our Calendly link, and we'd love to chat with people who are interested in getting in the real estate game, or maybe they have 2 units or 3 units. We can really help you get from 2 to 5. Like that I know we can do. If you have 20, there's probably somebody else that's better off in getting you to 40 than us. But we have carved out a niche. That would be the best way for people to get in touch with us, I think, is Instagram. And then our podcast is the WealthJuice podcast. And that's every Wednesday. And you can find that wherever you listen to them. So that's the best way. Right? Did I miss anything?
No, I think the one thing I would touch on is when you DM us, it's actually us replying. So make sure you let us know where you heard us. So if it was on this podcast, great. Tell us where you came from. And then we'll be able to chat with you. But no, I can answer. Do you want me to jump in on this?
Please. Too? Yeah. Please leave us with a nugget.
Let's see if I can hit you with a little truth bomb here. I will say there are so many people out there doing similar things, right? Everyone has their own niche. You need to find someone that you can relate to. Like, who can you see yourself as, or who do you want to be like in the next 5 to 10 years, right? To that next step. And then that's who you should be surrounding yourself with and getting in that person's room or in that person's circle, right? Maybe it's Corey and Ryan, maybe it's Sam, right? Maybe it's someone else. It's who have you read a book? Who's the author of the book you wrote? They probably have a program or know someone that has a program. And you can get in touch with anyone today on social media. You write the right email, you craft the right message via DM, you'll be shocked who replies to you. So I'll say start there. But what I really want people to know is, like, if you're an aspiring investor and you're kind of going through, it's like, you need to choose your hard. And I say this to say, you can continue doing what you're doing and balancing your W-2 while analyzing deals and never making offers and kind of going through the reading, listening to the podcast. And you're going to do that for the next 10, 15, 20 years. And then your life is going to breeze by you, and you have worked all that time that you knew that there was something else potentially better out there that you could get into, and you didn't do it. Or you could choose the heart of just sucking it up, taking action and making the offers, or finding someone that is going to help you feel confident enough to make the offers and getting you to the next stage. There's so many people out there that are successfully doing this. And if you continually make the excuse of this isn't for me, or it seems too hard, like I just don't think I can do it, this market isn't great, I don't have enough money to save, like you'll never get there. You need to find what you're lacking, what is not working, what's your biggest pain point, and find someone that can help solve that pain point for you. And then you go to the next pain point that you have, find another person to solve that pain point. It's a never ending cycle. And the part that I want people to wrap their brain around is like, it's not about the real estate. It's not about the money that comes associated with it. It's the person you become through the process. Like you could remove all the things that Sam has, all the things that Corey and Ryan have from our portfolio to the money to whatever. And if you had to start again today, we would find our way back to where we were, if not 10 times better, because we went through the experiences. We put the training wheels on, we put our big boy pants on and tried it. And realize that like nothing comes in this world without working hard and surrounding yourself with people that have done it successfully before you. You're recreating the wheel if you try to do it yourself. There's proven frameworks and blueprints and roadmaps out there. You need to pick one that resonates with you, that you are excited about, and just go do it and just force it to happen. I know it sounds crazy. Sometimes it works out. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes there's speed bumps, but to trust that you're just going through it and learning your way through things, you will find success no matter what. And then there's always going to be someone that will extend the helping hand when you need it. So I'll leave you with that. Don't spend every day wanting to do something and not taking action. I know it seems like it's the most cliche thing in the world, like take action. It's like, take baby steps to get there and you will get there, but you'll never have a property if you don't analyze a property. Never have a property if you don't make offers on a property. You'll never have a property if you don't study how to become a real estate investor or real estate. Like it just won't happen for you. And we were stuck in the same cycle. And that's why I say that, like one day we'll do this. One day we'll do this. Well, when are you going to do it? You need to spend the time, whether it's before your 9 to 5 or after your 9 to 5 or on the weekends when everybody else is partying, to focus, study on YouTube, study on podcasts, proceed reading the books, and then join a program. You have to pay to play in this game. And if we started back, 6-7 years ago, whenever we originally started doing this and we just paid to get in the right room, we would have 300 properties at this point and we would be in a much different spot. So if we could go back, that's what we would do. And you can do it. I think you should know that we're all average Joes in this room that just decided to commit to ourselves and to the craft. And that's why we've made it to where we've gotten to. And there's other people that are out there that are willing to help. So if we can do it, you can do it.
Boom. I think you did good. That was awesome. Guys, thanks so much for your time, your energy, your generosity here on the show. I really appreciate it. We'll link all the notes, and we'll link the WealthJuice official, just WealthJuice official on Instagram. We'll link all that in the show notes. God bless you guys. Thanks for your time and thanks for all the value.
Thanks, Sam.
Thank you so much, Sam.
Guys, I'm so inspired by these two guys. I think they've got a Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett type energy as they work together. They're young, they're hustlers, they got great energy, and they're great people to have in your network. I really highly recommend go check them out, go check their coaching program out, and continue to check back into the Scale Your Real Estate podcast for more just great episodes on ways to be moving your real estate journey forward and achieving financial freedom and doing it while living an amazing life. God bless you guys. I'll see you on the next episode.